Welcome everyone to Fantasy Insiders TV. I'm Davis Maddock in lieu of your normal host, Soccer Dave, because he has crying babies to attend to. I'm here with Dan Gaspar, Mr. Total oh 05, fresh from a heartbreaking trip to Las Vegas, Nevada for the Daily Fantasy Baseball Championship hosted by FanDuel, and Derek Carty, also of FantasyInsiders.com. I hope we're not interrupting your Clash of Clans session, Dan.
You said you were going to go to the bathroom, so I had to get in a quick attack.
No, I completely understand. I mean, Clash of Clans is so much infinitely greater than DFS. If I could win money playing Clash of Clans, I would forget sports so fast.
Dave, I barely played. I pretty much didn't play at all over the weekend. But Dave is sitting there at breakfast playing Clash of Clans all breakfast long, and Steve, anytime he gets to the room, is just Clash of Clans right away.
See, I wish you guys would have been playing when we were in Frisco.
It's the best time filler that there is. I mean, waiting for breakfast, waiting for them to, for us to be seated, because Dan made us walk half of a mile.
Okay, come on.
For Hash House a go-go.
Yeah, Steve didn't want to walk back the half a mile, so Steve actually paid for a taxi for us.
Because there's no Uber
There's
available.
no Ubers in Vegas.
Oh,
And we should talk about what's going on in chat too, because I think there's the misconception that late swap actually mattered for the FanDuel event.
no,
Whereas it didn't. I mean, you didn't know in time. You knew there was a delay early on, but they didn't announce the postponement until after the game started. So unless you're very highly versed in water main issues and knew 100% that there was going to be a
the delay,
postponement.
the water main break was not announced until after 7:05 Eastern time.
Yep.
When lineups locked anyways. And then, even at that point, it was the last game that was starting of the night, and they said, it's cool, we're going to start in 30 minutes. Then after 30 minutes, a bunch of the beat writers tweeted out that the pitchers weren't warming up and that the managers were talking. And then 30 minutes after that, we saw the tweets that the game was postponed until the next day. So late swap wouldn't have mattered. Like, on
Yeah.
DraftKings, if you had Billy Hamilton, you were screwed, too.
And somebody's saying that you knew the water main break was before the 7:05 lock. If you did, I don't know how you knew it, because nobody in the whole entire championship knew it. We didn't know until probably 20 minutes after lock or so. I don't remember the exact timeline. But
Yeah, the game
there's
was
definitely
delayed.
no information out before, unless you have some utility connection out there in Denver, I guess.
Yeah, the game was delayed, and then I saw a tweet, or Nap showed me a tweet, and it said, Red's beach writer said this game's not looking good, but it was after it was already started, so they hadn't officially stopped it by then. It was like the energy just got sucked out of the room. It was really unfortunate, but everyone handled it. I mean, pretty well, as far as no one was crying or saying, no one was crying foul. There was an article today in Forbes. Dan, did you see that one?
I didn't.
By Mark Edelman, saying that that sites need to have contingency plans for these freak events. So that the title of the article I thought was very, I don't know, dramatic.
I'm sure it was clickbaiting.
It said, could the water main break derail the daily fantasy sports industry?
Of course. And that was our main, I mean, that was anybody who has a piece of the industry's main concern, was that people would then use that to try to play into the luck factor and basically say, oh, okay, this shows you that it's, gambling and not a game of skill, which is the main concern.
And they discussed it heavily as far as what they could do about it, and they just decided there's really nothing they could do about it.
Yeah.
And everybody, all the contestants were okay with it. So, it was just Dan, you were talking about the timing of everything and the percentage that, I mean, this is kind of one of those once in a lifetime thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the fact that it A, happened, and then B, fell within the hour between when games locked and when the Colorado game was.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it happens is astronomical, and then the timing of it too is just crazy.
In hindsight, I wish that Steve Fink would have had a seat and that he would have stacked cores and then and then had to have dealt with a water main break, ruining his chance at winning $1 million. I think that would have been the most entertaining outcome for everyone involved.
If Steve had more drinks in at that, if it would have been Friday night where Steve was a little out of control before we even got to the event, and that happened Friday night, we could have had some nice fireworks going on.
Friday night Steve and Friday night Leone were something that
I will never delete that picture off my phone. The one I have of Leone going like this with a drink in his hand. I might make it my background.
He stole Kay Adams' drink.
Of course he did.
Kay Adams was going to introduce Ricky Henderson to everybody.
Oh my gosh.
He steals Kay Adams' drink and then tries to give it to me. I said, no. He's like, you gotta drink it. And Nap...
Come on, David.
Nap, in the meantime, is sitting right there. He's like, come on, guys, put it back, put it back, put it back.
Well, that had to be before Nap knew Kay Adams had a boyfriend.
Yeah, I think it was
hilarious. I walk into there's this little circle. It's like Al, Jeff Manns, Napster all sitting in a circle with Kay Adams there. All of a sudden, I just see Nap get up and start walking away, and he turns to me. Kay Adams just said she has a boyfriend. I'm done.
I mean, I would bet $1 million, even if she didn't have a boyfriend, at any fantasy sports event, she definitely says she has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. That's true.
She does, though, from what I hear.
I heard she asked about Derek Carty, though.
Oh, yeah, she definitely did.
According to Kitchen.
She definitely did.
Yeah.
She said,
right.
Tell Derek that I want to know what product he uses in his hair. And I said, believe it or not, Kay, it's natural. He doesn't use anything. And she called you out on it.
He just doesn't shampoo every day.
Yeah. So
we need to tell the Steve story too, and then we can
talk about baseball.
Yeah.
There's only 7 games tonight.
Go for it, Dan.
It's so this was Friday night, and this was when Steve was already had a few drinks in him. We're walking to go place a sports bet, and I didn't know this at the time, but I knew there was a bodybuilding-ish competition going on. I didn't know this lady was a participant of it. So Dave's theory is that this lady had just gotten done with like the bikini part or the swimsuit contest part.
She totally did.
So she's walking around with bottoms on that are very scandalous and revealing because, you got to see the muscles. And just a sweatshirt on. And Steve walks by and just says, "Holy crap!" And she responds, "You got a problem, mate?" And Steve's response was like, "I'm not a pervert, but that shit's crazy." And so we were saying that the whole week. And I'm not a pervert, but that shit's crazy. And then she just continued to walk away from us.
Oh, Steve, man, he was a trip. And then he kept on calling her Brazilian. And like, Steve, that was not... The Brazilians do not say, "You got a problem, mate."
Did you guys get an Uber? Or just tell
There
Steve
is
to
no
get Uber
Ubers.
the entire time?
There's no Uber
in Vegas.
What? That seems like a huge oversight on that company's part.
It really is.
I don't know. Like, there was that deal in London with the cabs, like, boycotting. I don't know. They're a pretty business-savvy company, so there's some reason why they didn't. Anyways.
Yeah.
Well, it's because the fares can't be anything other than just, like, a mile on the strip.
Probably true.
It's more than likely the reason. But anyways, continue on.
All right. Well, we should maybe talk about today's slate, I suppose. The big question that everyone has and that sort of dictates the rest of how you build your lineups is Chris Sale or not Chris Sale on FanDuel, and then also his price tag on DraftKings. The line is sort of weird. He's not like a heavy favorite or anything, and it's not a 6.5 run total. It's a 7. And Baltimore's lineup, they have, they have 7 righties in. Left-handed pitching, or at least have, like, Chris Davis has power against lefties. Dan, what are you doing with Chris Sale?
I think I'm probably going to be playing him on DraftKings cash games. I think that's for sure. The other's kind of up in the air if he's going to be my main FanDuel pitcher. Unlike you, I guess I'm not too surprised by the line. I see it. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, anytime you have a game in U.S. Cellular, you're going to see runs scored no matter who's pitching, so they're not going to go too low on the over-under. And I guess I'm not even that surprised at it being -150, -155. I don't think. I'm not surprised that he's not a heavier favorite.
Well, I'm just, I guess a lot of the times when I am locked in on a starting pitcher, I don't necessarily look at the line all that much. I just sort of look at the skills. But like when I do, I'm used to seeing Clayton Kershaw -260, stuff like that. So it just struck me as a little weird that against Bud Norris he wasn't like over 180.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's a lot of that reasoning is Clayton Kershaw doesn't pitch in U.S. Cellular, and he obviously is a better pitcher. But
and the Orioles are a good offense. That's a platoon against him.
Right, extremely right-handed, good offense. So I'm not too surprised by it. The line that was surprising to me was actually how big of a favorite Jordan Zimmerman was. That was the thing that stuck out to me. I wasn't expecting. It looks like he's around a 220, 225. I wasn't expecting that big of a favorite.
Okay. All right, Derek, what are your thoughts on Chris Sale for cash games tonight?
It seems like I'm kind of in the same boat as Dan. I'm going to be using him definitely on DraftKings and probably on FanDuel too. It's just hard to fade the guy who's clearly the most talented pitcher of the night, even though the matchup itself isn't like fantastic, even though there is some risk with it, given that it is in the Cell and Orioles are a good right-handed offense. Sale is just so good to begin with, and Norris is not a good pitcher. I think fading Sale is a mistake tonight.
Okay, yeah, and I don't really have any problem with that, especially on FanDuel. Like with the way some of the values are working out tonight, it's really not all that incredibly hard to work a lineup that you like with Chris Sale and several of the more pricey hitters in. In terms of second starting pitcher, especially on DraftKings, I'm assuming that Roenis Elias is your guy, Derek.
He is. Laffy touched on him in his article today. He was actually his #1 guy, and the main concern is that Seattle might not want to overwork him. They want to keep him around, for a potential playoff push. So, I mean, he's only been throwing anywhere from 85 to 95 pitches in all of his starts recently, which isn't great. But I think the matchup for him is so good. He's not going to have to face the DH. He's going to be facing a Phillies offense that, even though it's in a good hitter's park, the offense is so left-handed. So he's going to have the platoon against basically everyone who matters except for Marlon Byrd. And he's a pretty good pitcher. So
Carlos Ruiz is back in the lineup and batting second, for whatever that's worth. I don't know how good he is.
Not a whole lot. I mean, he's decent, but it's not like it's changing my opinion at all. I think Elias is he's my #2 guy tonight. I think I'm going Sale and Elias on DraftKings.
Okay, what are your thoughts on Elias, Dan?
Yeah, I think it sets up well for him. Obviously, it's the benefit of not having to face a designated hitter. Pretty lefty-heavy team, and their Phillies aren't shying away either. For a while, they were trying to get a little bit more right-handed, but it looks like they have 4 lefties still in the lineup tonight. And then the righties you're looking at are Andres Blanco, the pitcher, and Aaron Ruff. I mean, you're scared of Marlon Byrd a little bit. Ruiz, is actually a viable catching option now that he's back in the lineup, but I mean, there's not a whole lot to be scared of. So I like it. I think I can definitely see the case for going Sale Elias or even Zimmerman Elias. The other guy I guess we should probably bring up, otherwise Natty Sluggers are going to get mad at us, is Irvin Santana. I think, personally, Elias is the better play than Irvin Santana. Even though the park isn't in his favor, I still think he's the better play for his price tag. But I wouldn't blame anyone for going Santana. It's a good park, PNC Park. That Pittsburgh lineup really isn't too intimidating when they're facing right-handed pitching. You have Alvarez, who has just had a god-awful year, and the rest of their lineup's pretty right-handed. So I can see the case for Santana, but he's pricey on DraftKings. There's certainly no way I would play him over either Zimmerman or Elias on DraftKings, but I guess if you want to mix it up a little bit and be a little different, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think I'd almost prefer Worley to Santana, especially because it's not Gaddis behind the plate tonight. It's Gerald Laird, and Gerald Laird is a terrible defensive catcher in terms of pitch framing and blocking pitches and that sort of thing. And I don't know. I think the Pirates lineup, they do have some pretty good lefties. It is, pretty right-handed, but Polanco's good, Neil Walker's good. Alvarez and Snyder at least have power where they can do some damage against him. So for the price tag, I don't think Santana is on my radar tonight. I think I'd prefer Worley or... I hate to say it, but I'm definitely going to use him in a GPP tonight. I'm definitely using Justin Masterson in a DraftKings GPP just because... that Reds lineup is just so gross. It's outside of Great American Ballpark. It's mostly righties.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as much trouble as Masterson has had this year with his command and stuff, I think he's a good upside pick today.
Yeah. Yeah. When you just first mentioned, I knew you were going to go up and mention Masterson, but I just got my first look at that Reds lineup, and like you said, it's bad. It's what they have: Bruce, Hamilton, and Pena that can hit from the left side, and that's really what Masterson struggles with. Our left-handed bats. He's got close to an 80-point difference in WOBA between the two, right-handed, left-handed. So anytime you're going to face a primarily right-handed offenser, Masterson is, even if he isn't as sharp as he has been in prior season, it's a good matchup. Really good GPP option.
Yeah, I think that's probably all that he is. I know that the Reds have kind of struggled, but just when you can look at Elias, who's a sort of a better pitcher because he doesn't have such a wide platoon split, I think that you would just rather take him instead at a comparable price point. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there I don't even know if there's anyone else that we really need to mention. I guess maybe... Nope, that's really about it. I don't know, C.J. Wilson, but he's sort of broken.
No C.J. Wilson.
It doesn't set up for him well at all.
Not at all. I think we pretty much covered everyone, and like you said, Elias is a better play at that price point than Masterson. But in a GPP, if you pair the two of them, I think I'm definitely going to be doing that on DraftKings tonight, at least in one lineup.
Yeah. Okay.
We have Worth in the chat mentioning Vargas. I don't hate it, but you're going to obviously have to pay close attention to the weather in that game.
I hate it. This Twins lineup is I like this Twins lineup with Kenny's Vargas and Mauer back. I kind of like the top of that order.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it was even a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and Vargas is going to cost you, the same as Elias will, more than Masterson will, more than Worley will. So, I don't know. I don't feel it.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with that line of thinking. You guys want to talk about hitters now?
Let's go for it.
All right. So top stack, I think, is the Seattle Mariners. I would go with them over the Washington Nationals just because I like the way that their lineup works better with all of those lefties that they can put in there sequentially against Jeremy Williams, and I like the skills of their middle of the order hitters better a little bit too, I think.
I like the Mariners stack because they're an easier stack to get because their prices are more reasonable. I don't think they're the best offense of the day, but I think they're an easy team to stack that's going to do fairly well because everyone is priced so affordably.
Yeah.
I like how you mentioned the Nationals as your secondary stack, though. I'm completely off of that tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say,
really?
That's the thing that's notable.
I mentioned it in my article today how people are going to be on a National stack and how I'm not about it.
Okay, well, explain that a little bit, because all it was for me is I saw Vidal Nuno and I said, okay, yeah, let's do this.
And that's exactly it. You're going to see Vidal Nuno, but Vidal Nuno is not a terrible pitcher. He's an average pitcher, especially now that he's in the National League. You look at what he's done. He's got an xFIP under 4 in the National League, and if you adjust his AL numbers, that's about what you'd expect him to be. It's not like it's in Chase Field. It's in Washington. So I think there's worse pitchers to pick on today. You're going to have Jerome Williams in Citizens Bank. You're going to have, Brandon Workman in Fenway. this Minnesota Kansas City game looks like it could be a sneaky high scoring affair. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think both Boston and the Angels are far and away much better options for stacking than the Nationals, and like
you're far and away a better option.
I know. I mean,
that's
no
how
one's
bad the
debating
National stack is tonight, Davis.
that just, I mean, Derek, you're the king of not putting too much stock in like small sample sizes. Nuno has like a long track record of being pretty bad and of giving up home runs.
He doesn't have that long of a track. I mean, he's not
he's a young pitcher.
Yeah,
he's gonna struggle.
That's what I'm saying.
He's got decent stuff. He's got pretty good minor league numbers. I mean, you look at what he was doing in 2013 in the minors. He had a 10.8 K per nine at AAA. Obviously, that's a small sample too, but you put it all together. I mean, he's an average or a below average pitcher. He's not an awful pitcher in the way some of these other guys today are. And in a neutral park or a park that slants slightly towards pitchers, I think he's not a guy that's at the top of my list to pick on. That's not to say he can't get roughed up. He's just probably like 4th or 5th on my list.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Talk a little bit about the Angels stack, because I don't really have a good feeling on who Brandon Workman is as a pitcher, Dan.
I mean, Derek could probably give you a better scouting report than I can on Workman, but you know, he hasn't been good. What, Derek? You probably say he's average. He's probably along the lines.
Yeah,
of Nuno.
he's below average. He's worse than Nuno, in my opinion.
And I mean, but the thing is, even if they're close, the park. I mean, you take into all the contextual factors, and it's just a much better environment for the Angels to put up runs.
Mm-hmm.
No, Dan, Ben Pritchett taught me about baseball, so I actually don't look at where the game is being played at all.
Well, obviously, because you love to take those righties in PNC. We know that.
I really do, dude. It's like it's a sickness. I love to take righties in that park where I'm pretty sure a right-handed batter hasn't hit a home run since 1984. Like it's just outrageous. Okay, well let's start talking about positions then. So the guys I was looking at for catcher were Wilson Ramos and Mike Zunino. Ramos is batting down in the order from where he has been the last several days down to 7th, whereas Zunino is getting a little bit of a boost up to 6th. My man crush on Mike Zunino and its history on this show is a long-standing tradition. So I'm sort of biased to wanting to take him, but my hatred for Nuno also exists. But who are you guys looking at, catcher? There's like 4 or 5 decent mid-range options there tonight. Who do you like, Derek?
Yeah, I think tonight you're really looking at mid-range options almost exclusively. First, because most of the top guys just aren't playing tonight. And second, because the mid-range options have pretty decent matchups. Guys like Zunino, guys like Chris Iannetta, guys like Tyler Flowers. Salvador Perez is, I think, above that group in terms of overall talent. But he's in play tonight against Trevor May. And those are really the kinds of guys that I'm looking at.
Will you, just for a second, because we talked about this the last time May pitched, me and Laffy kind of talked about him. Mm-hmm. What do you think about him? Like, is he a prospect? Is he not a prospect? Like, what's his deal?
May was a prospect, but like a B prospect, not like an elite guy. He's got pretty good stuff. His command is really shaky. He tends to leave some pitches elevated and miss some spots. His pitchability needs work. So even though I think he's going to be, or he has a potential to be a pretty good pitcher someday, he's not a guy I have too much difficulty playing a couple Royals against tonight, especially because that game there's an over umpire going. He's a rookie this year, so sample size is kind of small, but he's had some pretty extreme results this year. So yeah, I think it's not like I'm going with a full-fledged Royal stack, but at a shallow position like catcher, I have no problem going with Perez against him.
I hate Ned Yost. I want him to bat Jared Dyson leadoff more than anything in the world, and he just refuses.
You got Aoki, man.
Stop it, dude.
Aoki is better than Dyson.
No. Oh,
he is.
my, no. Absolutely.
Yes, he is.
No,
he is
I
much
can't.
Better.
No. We're fighting.
Dyson has more speed, so you want to see him at the top of the order,
Yep.
but Aoki's a better hitter.
Don't tell me Nori Aoki is good, because he is so...
He's not bad, but I loved him as a Brewer.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did, man.
Because he's a mediocre player. He's a solid player that gets it done every day. Whereas you got the extremes. You got the Dyson that's either going to get on base every single time and get 10 steals in a game, or just go 0 for 5 with five strikeouts.
It's really just a microcosm of our personalities.
It is. I'm a Nori Aoki guy. You're a Jared Dyson guy.
Who do you like at catcher? I think the more after listening to Derek talk, I do think Zunino is the top option with all those guys in the mid range, and he's the one who could just he could have the walk, hit 2 doubles, and drive in like 5 runs type game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like Zunino. I think he's I think he probably is the top option. Perez is close for me up there, and then the other guy that we touched on that's back in the lineup batting second. Even though I do like Elias tonight, I think Ruiz is certainly in play.
And he's very cheap on FanDuel. Mm-hmm. Whereas Zunino is, I think he's only 3,000 on DraftKings. And on a site where it's not going to punish you for strikeouts, which is what Zunino's problem is against right-handed pitching, I think he's sort of the guy that you want. And also, I didn't even realize this, but with the way Seattle's lineup works out, is he might get a couple at-bats against left-handed relievers because he's surrounded by lefty bats, and if they brought in a loogie, there's a chance he could get a plate appearance against a lefty later in the game. So that's always nice. And actually, Philadelphia's pen is heavily left-handed. They have Bastardo and Dykman, who are sort of their 7th inning guys, and they're both left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. Let's talk about middle infield then. So the guys that I did like at second base and shortstop were Rendon and Desmond, in addition to Robinson Cano, but Derek's not on board with that. I think on FanDuel, I think Robinson Cano is a must-play for 3,700. They just haven't really adjusted his price very much due to the lack of power. So I think you kind of just have to lock him in against a bad right-handed pitcher.
Yeah, I think Cano is one of the top options tonight. I think Dozier is up there with him. He's a little riskier because he's more of a boomer bust power guy. But I think him and Cano are both great plays tonight. And I do think Rendon's a good play. It's not like I'm going to say avoid Rendon. Like, he's probably my number 3 second baseman tonight after those 2 guys.
You're expecting Cy Nuno tonight. 7 scoreless innings, 10 Ks?
No.
There's a difference between liking individual plays and a whole team stack.
Yeah. Especially, like, I'm definitely going to be on Desmond too, because when you're at shallower positions, then, guys who maybe come from a stack that is suboptimal become good plays at a position like second base or shortstop.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think I'm going to pay what it takes for Rendon. I would much rather take, like, Howie Kendrick batting cleanup tonight against Workman, or Dozier or Cano.
Okay. Is Howie Kendrick good? Like, I just feel like he never does anything. Like, I feel like I'm watching, my Cole Calhoun on MLB TV waiting for Howie Kendrick to drive him in, and he strikes out looking like 80% of the time.
Kendrick's one of those, like, boring guys who doesn't, like, do anything spectacularly, but, like, he contributes across the board. He'll hit for a decent average, take a few walks, a little power, a little speed.
He's Nori Aoki.
Oh, my God.
That means Davis refuses to play him now.
Yeah. Are there any good sort of punt options at second base? Because if you do go Sale on DraftKings, you have to find somewhere to punt. The one guy I can see as a punt right now is a shortstop is Xander Bogaerts against left-handed pitching. That's actually probably who I'm on tonight in terms of punting.
Yeah, Bogaerts is a terrific punt. He's still the minimum on FanDuel, and he's cheap on DraftKings. So Bogaerts is a great way to punt tonight.
Yeah,
Infante's got a really cheap price on DraftKings. Yeah,
Infante's pretty good.
Any love for Tommy La Stella batting 6th against Worley? I mean, a Worley blow-up start is coming sooner or later. Like, he's been thoroughly mediocre, but like a really bad Vance Worley start is coming.
Not really. Not in that park with, I don't know, he's batting, 7th
But
tonight?
he's a lefty, though, so it doesn't matter. And if he hit a home run off Steven...
Just because PNC is death on righties doesn't mean it's also not bad for lefties.
So just never play a hitter in PNC ever?
No, but not against a pitcher who's kind of decent when there's some bad pitchers in really good parks going.
Yeah.
Well, it's a game strategy thing. You're not gonna second base is about as deep of a position as you're gonna find tonight. You're not gonna there's no point in going with Stella, especially DraftKings Infante is $500 more. If you're going to punt, I think that's your punt option, but I don't think it's a position you want to fade by any means tonight.
No, I don't think so. There's probably 5 or 6 legitimately good second base options tonight.
Exactly.
Is Dustin Pedroia still insanely cheap on FanDuel?
Yeah, he's probably one of those 5 or 6, closer to the 5 or 6 level than. But yeah, he's still pretty cheap.
Okay. At shortstop, do you guys think that Ian Desmond? I mean, he got bumped up a spot in the order from where he normally is. I think. Well, he normally bats 6th or 7th, right? Depending on the handedness of pitcher.
Yeah,
and he's up to 5th.
Yeah, with some of those injuries, he's been moved up recently, so 5th is nice for him. On FanDuel, he's definitely the top shortstop option, in my opinion. On DraftKings, where guys like Billy Hamilton or Dozier qualify, then I prefer them. But I think Desmond's a really good play tonight. I think Danny Santana is a really good play tonight.
I can't figure out Danny Santana. He's one of those guys.
He's playing over his head. He is. But he's still probably a pretty decent hitter. He's hitting at the top of a lineup that at least the top half of it is pretty good. So there's guys that can drive him in. And I think tonight, the Twins are going to do a little bit of damage against Vargas. So he's in a pretty good spot.
What are your thoughts on shortstop, Dan?
I'll give you your one PNC guy you can play tonight, or one Brave, and that's Andrelton Simmons for $2,800 on DraftKings, $2,200 on FanDuel. Batting second tonight. There's your PNC allotment.
They just randomly do this with him, where the Braves will bat him second for a week, and FanDuel just refuses to acknowledge it. They're just like, nope, it'll go back to normal, so they bat him second anyways. I remember he was the first guy that I was regularly taking righty versus righty. It was new for me. It was a new experience.
That's why it was your first time.
It was my first. I'll never forget him. I don't know.
I think he's your top option if you don't want to spend money.
I think I got to see how cheap he is, but
he's 28 on DraftKings, 22 FanDuel.
Okay, yeah. I think another cheap guy, not that cheap. It's not like he's minimum, but 26 on FanDuel is Eric Ibar, and he's batting 5th again tonight against Workman. Switch hitter. So if it goes to the pen, he's going to keep the platoon advantage. But he's going to start, hitting on the good side of Fenway towards the monster. So I think he's a really underrated play tonight.
Him and Elvis Andrus are the same player to me, even though they're not. They have different skill sets. They seem so blah to me, I guess.
Oh, but also, yeah, Dan mentioned him earlier. But if you're punting tonight, I far prefer Bogarts to Simmons. Yeah, I mean they're both going to be the minimum. So.
Future Hall of Famer Xander Bogaerts. I was listening to the BS report, the Boston Red Sox one that Simmons did with his friend, and they were talking about how much hype Bogaerts got when he called up, and I was remembering that. And then he's had an 0 for 35 streak twice this year, but I'm not complaining because he still hits left-handed pitching pretty well. I think on DraftKings, where a minimum play on DraftKings is worth more just because it saves you more percentage of the cap where he's 2,600. I think I prefer playing him there over playing him on FanDuel. But that's just me. Let's do the corner spots. First base. I think this is another punt first base night. Honestly, I think that 3 of the options I really like are pretty cheaper, and I already know the first cheaper option Derek's going to say.
Oh, I know you do.
And I know your cheap option.
Yep, yeah, you do, Dan. He's in the core group.
Kenny Vargas.
Yep. And Derek's going to say Adam Dunn.
Yep.
See, I'm a mystery. You guys, you don't have a read on me. Who's my guy?
Who's
Kendrys Morales?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you want to do with the position. I think you're probably right in wanting to punt it. The obvious top option, no questions asked, I think, is Jose Abreu tonight. Yeah. But yeah, I like Morales. I like Pujols, even though his price is kind of up there. I don't think I'd pay $4,900 on DraftKings for Pujols. Well, no, there's no way I would. With Abreu, only $100 more. But yeah, Morales is probably one of my top guys tonight.
Well, that was cute. We all just gave each other's analysis. That was great. I mean, seriously, though, like, FanDuel has not adjusted Vargas's price since he's been called up, and he has been raking. Like, he's already hit, like, 3 home runs. He's slugging, like, 480. Like, he's been a complete stud the entire time he's been up, and they have yet to move his price a single dollar.
Yeah, I mean, the batting average is going to come down. He was never projected to hit for much average, and he's striking out a lot, but the raw power is legit, and the matchup tonight is good, so I have no problem with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think Kendrys Morales, if I had the $400 extra dollars, is actually who I want, just because I want to get exposure against Jeremy Williams. Vargas is one of those guys who's bad, but he's like not so bad that you want to go like you really want exposure against him. Like, and I think Morales is probably a better player, even no matter how bad he's been this year.
I think another guy who's reasonably priced, who's a really good play tonight, is Mike Napoli. He's in a Red Sox lineup that's stacked with righties. He's batting in the middle of it. He's going to have the platoon against C.J. Wilson. He's going to be hitting on the right side of Fenway. The team is going to score a lot of runs, I think, or a relatively lot of runs. So I think Napoli is a good guy for the price that he's going to command.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about? Or just do your Adam Dunn spiel, Derek.
My Adam Dunn spiel is the matchup is excellent. He has a huge true platoon split. He's got the platoon against a bad pitcher at home in U.S. Cellular. He's batting cleanup. So, I mean, Adam Dunn is a great play tonight from a probability standpoint, but he could just as easily go 0 for 4 with a strikeout and a walk as he could go, 2 for 4 with a dong and a double and 5 RBIs. So he's a better GPP than a cash game play, but he's a good enough value tonight where I think, at least on FanDuel, I think he's going to be in my cash game lineups as long as you're not overloaded on those kinds of guys, which I think tonight there's enough, like, safer plays at other positions.
There's a ton
where
of, there's a ton of OBP
put
guys.
Dunn in there and not worry about it, yeah.
Yeah. Are you okay using Dunn? I mean, Dunn is not a cash game play for me hardly ever. I try and avoid those home run or bust guys, but I don't have a problem with it. Or if I am taking a home run or bust guy, it feels to me like Dunn should be way cheaper than he is, right? Like $3,000 feels like too much for him.
Well, he's overpriced. The DraftKings price at 41.
Yeah, DraftKings he's too expensive, I think. Yeah. But FanDuel he's reasonable enough.
Okay. Third base. I mean, this is one of those positions where I only looked at one guy, so I'm gonna rely on you guys for the analysis here. But Kyle Seager is obviously my guy, batting fifth against Romy Rome. Absolutely. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I think Seager probably is. Well, not probably. I think he is the top third base option tonight. Another guy I don't mind that I guess would be kind of considered my punt option for the night. Especially if you're running out Napoli, I like the idea of pairing Middlebrooks with him. He's a guy that can get you power, especially in Boston. So I like him as the cheaper alternative. He's only $2,600 on DraftKings and $2,600 on FanDuel.
I like it. I think my top third baseman tonight is Kyle Seager. He's getting a huge park boost. It's all those lefties in Citizens Bank against Jerome Williams. He's batting fifth. It just seems like Seager's the top guy if you have a little bit of money to spend.
Do you want an example as to why baseball is stupid? That Kyle Seager bats behind Kendrys Morales.
Yeah.
Like, that's just complete. Like, it drives me nuts, the decisions that these managers make. Like, it's just so frustrating that that's something you're trying to do with a team that is, like, winning, right? I don't really look at the records, but, like, they're in contention for the playoffs, right?
Yeah. At least for a wild card spot.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, also, if you want to do, like, the Bogarts Desmond combo on DraftKings, Bogarts is third base eligible, so you can play him there if you don't want to play Seager.
I like Trevor Plouffe a lot. I think he's another guy who's reasonably enough priced. And in a pretty good spot. But I like the Middlebrooks punt, too. I think I'm going to wind up with him at least in a couple spots.
Whittlebrooks. That should be his nickname.
Whittlebrooks. I can dig it.
Yeah.
I can vibe with that.
You can. I was on a seasonal football podcast the other day, and someone said I can vibe that to me. I can vibe with that. So I think that was Soccer Dave afoot. The worst. All right, let's do outfield. So Mike Trout is there's a pricing error for Mike Trout on FanDuel today. someone fat fingered that. But he's been cold though, and Trout is I don't want to say prone to cold streaks because he's still the best player in baseball, but his plate discipline has always been sort of bad. He swings a lot and he strikes out a lot, so these streaks can happen for him. Talk about cold streaks relative to really good players, Derek.
I think I'm more likely to ignore a cold streak for a really good player just because it's hard for a guy like Trout to perform up to the kind of level you expect him to, all the time. And even though he has been like cold by any player's standards, there's so much underlying talent there, and the matchup is so good, and he projects so far above everyone else. I think it's really hard to fade him at the price that he's at.
Dan, do you sort of agree with that, or it's hard to do Sale and Trout tonight on FanDuel, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that hard, really.
You would have to that would necessitate fading one of Cano, Desmond, Seager at the middle infield slots, I think.
Yeah, but there's plenty of other options that are pretty good there, like Kendrick, Ibar, guys like that.
Yeah. I think that's where I want my Mariners exposure, though, because their outfielders are right, like Ackley and Morris, like Morrison's first base, and not Ackley, Austin Jackson is right-handed, which I'm not a huge fan of because he's not very good in general.
The train's about to come by, so I'm going to go on mute. You guys do your thing.
Oh, the 4:45 train,
man.
The
train. Yeah. I think, though, it's almost like, I don't know, like a misconception that even though we really like the Mariners tonight, that you have to get Mariners exposure like at all costs, like at the detriment of maximizing your lineup, like getting the most points out of it. Like having Mariners in there isn't necessarily the most optimal thing you can do. I agree that Mariners are good plays, and for the most part they're cheap. But it's not like I have to get Cano in there to get Mariners exposure if I think that there's a better way to structure my lineup.
So this is where you and I disagree. My third roommate that lives with Jordan Case and I, he doesn't play daily fantasy, and he hears us talk about all this stuff and stacking and everything, and he asks, why we do stacking. And the way that I explained it was because you can't project individual performance that well in baseball. It makes sense to try and get 3 or 4 teammates against a really bad pitcher. That way, hopefully, you can capture a really good performance against that pitcher without necessarily indicating that you got the one exact player right to do it.
See, that is where we disagree, because I feel like that's taking it from a very micro perspective, like on a daily perspective, where we really need to be looking at this from a macro perspective, from the long term. In the long term, you don't need to hit on, any particular day. You don't necessarily have to win. You have to maximize your potential winnings over an entire season, not just that day. So I think you put out the best lineup you possibly can. You don't necessarily have to try and get exposure to one team just so you get the one guy who is going to go off. You put out the best team you can, and over the long run, it's going to even out.
I do agree with your point there. I do think that you should obviously try and play the most optimal lineup every single day, but we also need to build in some fallibility, not into the projections, because Batman it's the most advanced projection model that there is for any sport, really. I've looked at projection models for every sport, and Batman is by far the most advanced model that there is. But in actual lineup construction, like lineups that you are entering into contests, you need to build fallibility into your money, the exposure that you have to your money, and that's why I think I'm more likely to force in Dustin Ackley. Like, Dustin Ackley's not going to be in your lineup tonight, whereas I think he probably will end up being in my cash game lineup just because I want to have 3 of those left-handed Mariners bats in.
But then what happens on the night when Jerome Williams, turns in like a Cy Danks performance, and you have 4 Mariners in there because you forced them in there.
Then Fink and I blow up the Skype chat, and you guys take a walk. That's like, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that in terms of lineup construction, it makes more sense to me to say Dustin Ackley, Kendrys Morales, and Robinson Cano have a better chance of posting 15 FanDuel points than just Robinson Cano and Alejandro De Aza and Albert Pujols combined, just because of the way that they work together.
I don't know.
Synergistic energy, right?
Synergistic energy. Eric,
I think in a
so
GPP,
good.
I can see that because they're going to build off each other. When one of them scores an RBI, the other one's going to score a run. But I think from a cash game perspective, I don't think you need to force that sort of thing. I think I would much rather put my roster together piecemeal with just individual players that are better values in general than to try and force an exposure to one particular team just because I don't like a particular pitcher.
Yeah. Where do you rest on this, Dan?
Well, you can guess.
No, I can't.
Of course,
on my side.
In the middle. Oh yeah, Dan just has.
I don't take sides. I'm in the middle on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the argument for both. I think the night or the slate dictates it too. I think the slate's going to dictate your strategy on
that's the thing.
how to best roster or construct your lineup.
On a night like say we have 11 games and Coors isn't one of the games, like you might have a lineup where every single one of your hitters is from a different team. Like that might very well end up being the case. But on a 7 slate night where there are like 3 starting pitchers who are clearly worse than the rest, I think it's a little different.
I agree, but I think too then that like coalesces with my point where I may have 3 or 4 guys from the same team, but that is still optimal because the slate is shorter. Like that's still the right play from a probabilistic standpoint. That's not necessarily always going to be the case, but then then that is the right play.
I'm just laughing at Kitchen tweeting, Cyrus.
Yep. Yep. I saw that. I just saw that too.
Going back and forth about poached eggs and different meats.
What?
You have a hand. He asked him, "You have a hand torch for your finishing meats, or for finishing? Like who does that?"
Dave loves meats, dude. Dave he does.
He does.
All right, so we haven't given any helpful outfield plays, so I'll just give everyone my FanDuel. My FanDuel outfield right now is Alejandro De Aza, Dustin Ackley, and Jason Worth. And those are the guys that I'm trying to get exposure to. Draft Day, DraftKings, FantasyElite. Those are the guys that I want.
Right now, my FanDuel outfield is Trout, Calhoun, and De Aza.
Yeah, yours is better. Definitely. Like from an optimal standpoint, yours is like way better.
But then I'm sure you have like Cano in your middle infield, where I have like Kendrick and Ibar.
Yeah, I have Cano, Desmond, Kenny Vargas, and Ruiz, I think. So, if you're taking my cash game head-to-heads tonight, guys, you know what you're up against. I'm a little... Cole Calhoun is one of those dudes who, like, he shows up in the optimal a lot because he leads off for such a high-scoring team. And it feels like he always delivers. Like, he always hits a home run in the 6th inning, like when you really need him, and they're always in the late game, and those are the points that bump you from out of the money and double ups to into the money. And so when he disappoints, it's so soul crushing. Like when he goes 0 for 4 with 2 Ks, it hurts me deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you like in outfield, Dan? Are you on some of the same guys that we are?
Yeah, I'm on a lot of the same guys. I don't know if Derek mentioned him while I was gone, but I know a guy that he wrote up as his top outfield option that I can get behind is Yoenis Cespedes.
Uh-huh.
I like him. He's obviously extremely high priced on DraftKings. He's a little more doable on FanDuel for that $3,900 price tag. But I like him quite a bit, and I can see fitting him in on a few teams. But then, it's a lot of the guys you mentioned. A guy that I think gets overlooked a ton. I don't think he's necessarily a great play or a great price play, but I think he's a decent option anytime there's a subpar pitcher on the mound. I would be Alex Gordon. He's 3,300 on FanDuel, 4,300 on Draft. It's kind of
he's so safe, dude. It doesn't get safer. Yeah.
He's my kind of guy, right? I mean, safe.
I'm surprised you don't play him every night. But if you played him every night, that would be very undan because you're either moderate in your moderation. So
exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean Gordon is a very good player, and I think his value on FanDuel is higher than on DraftKings because he's unlikely to make a lot of outs. Like he just doesn't really have those games where he rolls over on 3 ground balls really badly, and you just want to pull your hair out. Like he'll take some walks, he'll turn a really tough at bat into an opposite field single. Like that's the sort of player that he is.
Well, and he's the kind of guy. I mean, obviously not nearly as good against left-hander pitching, but he's also a guy where if a loogie does come in, you don't just walk away and not watch the at bat. Like he
hit a home run, like 2 weeks ago.
He can hit left. He's obviously not as good, but he can hit left-handed pitching. Whereas some of the guys that you have a lefty and then all of a sudden a lefty faces them and you're just okay, I'm just not going to watch this.
Yeah, Loogie comes in against Adam Dunn, and you're just like, well, I can watch I can watch 3 of the worst swings of all time, or I can just rack up that -2.5 on FanDuel right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's guarantee some dongs, dudes. Dan, you first.
I'm going to go with Mike Napoli.
I like it.
Derek?
I'm going to go with Adam Dunn.
It's classic.
Yeah.
I'll go for my obvious one. I'll go Jason Worth. That's happening.
I like that call. I think Worth is a good play tonight.
Under the radar, I'll go Dustin Ackley. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Jason Worth is 3.6 or 3.8 on DraftKings. That's insanity.
That's a good point.
Hashtag pricing error. I think under the radar, as much as I hate to say it, I think Marlon Byrd is a pretty good under the radar dong pick tonight. Like I said, I like Elias, but Byrd is like the one guy in that lineup that I'm scared of.
Yeah, he's got a pretty I'm trying to choose between Marlon Byrd or Dustin Ackley on FanDuel because they're the same price.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Byrd is the way better player, but Ackley is a Mariner, so.
Yeah, and I don't think I could fault you going either way, really.
Yeah.
I just got my under the radar dong.
Yes, who?
Norioki.
Absolutely not. I'll give you plus 500 on that.
That would be that's a horrible line.
Plus
to be honest.
Plus
I mean, if you go look up some odds, you probably see Adam Dunn around a plus 450 tonight, just to give you a frame of reference on how horrible you're setting that line. But anyways, my actual under the radar dong would be Howie Kendrick.
My under the radar is Kenny's Vargas, obviously. Who's your under the radar? Derek's under the radar is going to be Alejandro De Aza, probably.
I gave you Bird already, but De Aza is a pretty good one too. De Aza is almost like a must-play on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, he is.
He's batting leadoff, which he never does, and the matchup's just so good. So for 2,300, you got to fit him in there.
Yep. My regret for the night, I think, is probably going to be paying up for Sale instead of just going safe with Jordan Zimmerman on FanDuel. I think is probably the mistake that I'm going to regret. What about you, Dan?
I was going to say, however, it's going to be however I handle Sale, whether it be if I play him over Zimmerman or if I don't.
Yeah. Derek?
I think mine will probably be limited Nationals exposure, just
it
because
will.
I said that they're not a good stacking option, so they're going to go off. But I still stand by it. I think there's better guys to stack from. There's some individual good options in that lineup, but
yeah, you've talked me off of Ramos and onto Zunino for sure. I'm not gonna use Ramos anywhere. All right, cool. That probably does it for us here at Fantasy Insiders TV. If you have any questions, feel free to tweet them at us. We are sponsored by FantasyElite, the fantasy app that you can get on the What Store Kitchen. Are you on mute? He's on mute, so you can get that
the
on
App Store. The App
Store. There we go. If you guys want to get a game, send me a challenge. We can get some action in. And yeah, that'll do it for us here for Dan, Derek, and myself. Good luck in your games tonight, everybody.
Did I tell you I got my hands scrubbed for explosives yesterday going through the pre-check with Dave?
Yeah, I heard you put that on the Skype chat.
Dave's much more intimidating than me, to be completely honest.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.